Hey, Mike. I think we have Melissa on the other line too. If that's the case, Melissa, can you just say hello, unmute?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was having trouble starting this program. Thanks for joining. I know you probably can't interact, but at least you can participate, hear. Mike, you there?
Oh, I was on mute. Yeah, I'm here.
How's it going?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad.
I'm wondering about Maitreya because they're getting a lot of rain. Still.
Yeah. I asked him, if he was all right because he didn't come last like Friday or Monday. He said that he's doing okay, just really busy. He didn't go into any detail. Yeah. So he's all right.
That's good. Let's see if I can.
I can't remember if we were on 9 or 10.
We're on 10, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can start this again. Share the screen. I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties today. Okay, here it is. Okay, you can see it now, right, Mike?
Yep, we're good.
All right, go ahead. Text 10.
Okay, text 10. Sahayajna prajat searchtvam puruvacha prajapati nena prasa vishadvam ishavostis ishta kamaduk. Synonyms: Saha, along with; Yajna, sacrifices; Praja, generations; Shrishtva, creating; Pura, anciently; Uvacha, said; Prajapati, the lord of creatures; Anena, by this; Prasaiv Shadvam, be more and more prosperous; Isha, this; Va, your; Astu, let it be; Ishta, of all desirable things; Kamaduk, bestower. Translation: in the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation.
Purport. The material creation by the Lord of creatures, Vishnu, is a chance offered to the conditioned souls to come back home, back to Godhead. All living entities within the material creation are conditioned by material nature because of their forgetfulness of their relationship to Vishnu or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vedic principles are to help us understand this eternal relation, as is stated in the Bhagavad-gītā. Vedascha savar aham eva vedya. The Lord says that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand him. In the Vedic hymns, it is said, Patim Vishvasyat Meshwaram. Therefore, the Lord of the living entities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also 240, 2420, Srila Shukadeva Goswami describes the Lord as Pati in so many ways. Shriyapati, Yagapati, Prajapati, Dyampati, Lokapatir, Yadarapatir, Pati, Pitir Gatis Chandhaka Vrishni Sattvatam Prasidatam Me Bhagavan Satampati. Go ahead.
The Prajapati is Lord Vishnu, and he is the Lord of all living creatures, all worlds, and all beauties, and the protector of everyone. The Lord created this material world to enable the conditioned souls to learn how to perform yajna, sacrifices for the satisfaction of Vishnu, so that while in the material world, they can live very comfortably without anxiety. And after finishing the present material body, they can enter into the kingdom of God. That is the whole program for the conditioned soul. By the performance of yajna, the conditioned souls gradually become Krishna conscious and become godly in all respects. In the age of Kali, the Sankirtan yajna, the chanting of the names of God, is recommended by the Vedic scriptures, and this transcendental system was introduced by Lord Chaitanya for the deliverance of all men in this age. Sankirtan yajna and Krishna consciousness go well together. Lord Krishna, in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya, is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.32 as follows, with special reference to the Sankirtan yajna. Keep going.
Hey, Maitreya.
Hey, Bo, I tried joining 10 minutes ago and there was nothing
Yeah, I
going on.
was having some technical difficulties. My Zoom
Gotcha.
froze up and then I had to restart it. Sorry about that. How are you doing? You're really busy, or how's the rain situation? Because I remember David Van Pelt, Das and Vrishni. He used to be a
Yes.
Sankirtan devotee.
Yeah, of
His
course.
son is living in Grass Valley, with all those stoner kids. And he said that Das said that he stayed awake all night trying to shovel off the snow in Northern California there, because it would have collapsed one of his sheds.
Wow.
So they're getting a lot of snow up in the upper elevations.
Wow.
But
The hills
I'm
all
glad-
around here are covered with snow. We haven't gotten it yet. Probably not till next week.
Right. Why don't you read this famous verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which I just read in, I just read this verse because I'm
Krishna
on,
Varnam?
I just read this verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita because I just read the really long chapter. It's almost 7 hours long. I just read it, finished reading it today. It's been a couple of days since I
Wow.
started reading it because it's 7 hours long. It's
Huh.
Sanatana Goswami's, getting instructions from Lord Chaitanya.
Mhm.
And he describes all the different incarnations, like the Yuga avatars, and this is the Yuga avatar, and Lord Chaitanya describes himself. And it's kind of funny because Sanatana Goswami was saying, yeah, I'm really a low intelligence, I don't know anything, so would you help me to understand this, he gave a specific question about how to recognize the Kali Yuga avatar. And he said, let's move on. He just avoided the question because he didn't want to, say that he was the Yuga avatar, even though he is. But so he just kind of dodged this question because, a real incarnation of God will never say, oh, I'm an incarnation. That's why all these bogus incarnations in India, they always say, I'm God, I'm incarnation of God, so, but anybody who says that is not God, because Lord Chaitanya never claimed that, even though he is.
Well, of course, he appeared in the role of a devotee also. So
absolutely,
Krishna
yeah.
isn't shy about saying that he's the source of everything because that's how he came, as the source of everything.
Yeah, well, so is Lord Chaitanya. In
So
fact,
this is a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Do you know who speaks this verse?
it starts with a B. It's a sage. The sage, I think
One
it
of the
was
nine
like a
Yogendras.
conversation between Nimi and the 9 Yogendras.
That's right.
And
So
I
this-
can't remember his exact name, but it starts with a B. Can you tell me the name?
It was one of the 9 Yogendras. I'm not sure it was Karabhajana or there's 9 of them, and I don't know. I don't remember all their names, but yeah.
Yeah, it's those. I'm bad with names, but I just read it and I feel ashamed that I don't remember, because this is one of the most famous verses predicting the appearance of Lord Chaitanya.
So it goes like
I
this.
think in all scriptures,
Krishna Varnam Tisa Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Hisumeda Saha. In this age of Kali, people who are endowed with sufficient intelligence will worship the Lord, who is accompanied by his associates by performance of Sankirtan Yagya. Other yagas prescribed in the Vedic literature are not as easy to perform in this age of Kali, but the Sankirtan yaga is easy and sublime for all purposes, as recommended in Bhagavad-gītā also, 9:14.
Yeah, Mike, just for your information, it's pronounced yagya. It's not pronounced yajna. I don't know why. I guess the J is silent, right, Maitreya? Yagya.
That combination of letters with the J and the N like that is pronounced like a yeah, like a G,
Yagya.
a GY.
Yeah.
So I'm
Okay.
looking at
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and
9:14.
read the text 11 here, since you're a little bit late joining. We
Okay,
also have Melissa on the other. She's listening. She's at work right now,
okay. Hare
but
Krishna,
so
Bhakti
she's also
Melissa.
listening. So you're speaking to an audience of 3.
Devan bhavayatena te deva bhavayantuva parasparam bhavayanta shreya param avapsyata. The Devan, the demigods, bhavayata, having pleased, anena, by this sacrifice, te, those, devaha, the demigods, bhavayantu, will please, vaha, you, parasparam, mutually, bhavayantaha, pleasing one another, shreya, benediction, param, the supreme, avapsyata, you will achieve. Translation: the demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you, and thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all.
Go ahead, Mike.
Purport. The demigods are empowered administrators of material affairs. The supply of air, light, water, and all other benedictions for maintaining body and soul of every living entity is entrusted to the demigods, who are innumerable assistants in different parts of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their pleasures and displeasures are dependent on the performance of yajnas by the human being. Some of the yajnas are meant to satisfy particular demigods, but even in doing so, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in all yajnas as the chief beneficiary. It is stated also in the Bhagavad-gītā that Krishna himself is the beneficiary of all kinds of yajnas. Bhoktaram yajna tapyam. Therefore, ultimate satisfaction of the yajnapati is the chief purpose of all yajnas. When these yajnas are perfectly performed, naturally, the demigods in charge of the different departments of supply are pleased, and there is no scarcity in the supply of natural products.
I'll read the next one. Performance of yagas has many side benefits, ultimately leading to liberation from material bondage. By performance of yagas, all activities become purified, as it is stated in the Vedas. Ahara Shado Sattva Sudhi Sudhi Sadho Dhruva Smriti Smriti Labhe Sarva Grantinam Vipramoksham. By performance of yoga, one's eatables become sanctified, and by eating sanctified foodstuffs, one's very existence becomes purified. By the purification of existence, finer tissues and the memory become sanctified, and when memory is sanctified, one can think of the path of liberation, and all these combined together lead to Krishna consciousness, the great necessity of present-day society. Go ahead, Maitreya. Maitreya, are you there?
Ishtan Bogan Hivo Deva Dasyante Yagya Bhavita Tairdatan Apradaya Byo Yo Bhunte Stena Evasa. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. Well, we got the word for words. Ishtan, desired, Bogan, necessities of life, he certainly, Bha, unto you, Deva, the demigods, Dasyante, will award, Yagya Bhavita, being satisfied by the performance of sacrifices, Tai, by them, Datan, things given, Apradaya, without offering, Ibya, to these demigods, Yaha, he who, Bhukte, enjoys, Stena, a thief, Eva, certainly, Saha, he.
Yeah, I do that too. I forget that I'm actually reading, or not, you forgot that we're reading the synonyms. I forget that I'm reading something without synonyms, like in the middle of a paragraph, and then right after the Sanskrit, I say synonyms. And then I have to go back and take that part of the audio out, because I'm like, I've read the entire Bhagavatam and half of the Chaitanya Charitamrita with synonyms now. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita is so nice to read. It just flows like poetry. The Sanskrit part, at least.
Yeah, a quick question. So going
Sure.
back into the end of the last verse. So I mean, some of the stuff that we've been talking about is this idea that to know, one who knows Krishna consciousness, essentially knows everything that they need to know. Like it's like that everything is contained in this
Right.
process. But in the purport in that last verse, it seemed to be kind of breaking things down, like more almost like how that happens. And so, is this essentially saying that like the act of taking prasad is what's improving like the finer tissues in memory, which is then leading to that?
Well, it's just it's just an added benefit to the performance of sacrifice. When you perform sacrifice, all kinds of, see, the body, soul, and the mind are all connected. And ultimately the soul is connected to the super soul, and that's the Supreme Lord. So we're in tune with the Supreme Lord, then all of the aspects of our life, including our body, mind, words, intelligence, and everything, becomes sanctified. It becomes a part of the sacrificial process of Jaga. And so when we're engaging in that way, then we're in perfect tune with nature. We're in our natural constitutional position. In fact, I think Socrates, he said that any kind of disease that we have, he said that this is due to an imbalance in our spiritual existence. And you know what he said that was the cure for that? Anybody? Maitreya or Mike?
I'm not an expert on Socrates. Can't say.
You know what he said? He said mantra. Mantra, chanting, which is unbelievable. Prabhupada, Socrates was Prabhupada's most, I think, favorite Western philosopher, because I don't know if you've read the Dialectic Spiritualism. Prabhupada said that Socrates was definitely Brahman realized.
And there's back to Aristotle also. He was.
Yeah, back to Aristotle. Peaceful, Devananda Pandit, he wrote a song about, I think it was originally about Bhaktipad, but he said Socrates laying on his dying bed, and he said, if you want to kill me, you got to catch me first, because I'm living beyond this mortal frame, So he knew that he was spirit soul, and so therefore Prabhupada praised his, at least his Brahminical knowledge. Let's see, where are we at now?
The purport, I believe.
Okay, I guess I'll read the purport. The demigods are authorized supplying agents on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Therefore, they must be satisfied by the performance of prescribed yagas. In the Vedas, there are different kinds of yagas prescribed for different kinds of demigods, but all are ultimately offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For one who cannot understand what the Personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to the demigods is recommended. According to the different material qualities of the persons concerned, different types of yagas are recommended in the Vedas. Worship of different demigods is also on the same basis, namely according to different qualities. For example, the meat eaters are recommended to worship the goddess Kali, the ghastly form of material nature, and before the goddess, the sacrifice of animals is recommended. But for those who are in the mode of goodness, the transcendental worship of Vishnu is recommended. Ultimately, all yagas are meant for gradual promotion to the transcendental position. For ordinary men, at least 5 yagas, known as Pancha Mahadyaga, are necessary. But see that the whole idea of these different yagas for different materially inclined personalities like the meat eaters and the people that are addicted to sex and things like that, they are all meant to discourage these material activities. You know, like you're supposed to whisper in the goat's ear before you sacrifice the goat before Goddess Kali. You say, look, I'm killing you now, but in your next life, you can kill me. And she'd probably want to think twice about doing that before you kill the animal, you know, because you have to say that out loud. If you're actually performing it the way that it's intended in the Vedas, it's meant as a deterrent. Why don't you read the last paragraph, Mike?
Okay. One should know, however, that all the necessities of life that the human society requires are supplied by the demigod agents of the Lord. No one can manufacture anything. Take, for example, all the eatables of human society. These eatables include grains, fruits, vegetables, milk, sugar, etc., for the persons in the mode of goodness, and also eatables for the non-vegetarians, like meats, none of which can be manufactured by men. Then again, take, for example, heat, light, water, air, etc., which are also necessities of life. None of them can be manufactured by the human society. Without the Supreme Lord, there can be no profuse sunlight, moonlight, rainfall, breeze, etc., without which no one can live. Obviously, our life is dependent on supplies from the Lord. Even our manufacturing enterprises, we require so many raw materials like metal, sulfur, mercury, manganese, and so many essentials, all of which are supplied by the agents of the Lord, with the purpose that we should make proper use of them to keep ourselves fit and healthy for the purpose of self-realization, leading to the ultimate goal of life, namely liberation from the material struggle for existence. This aim of life is attained by performance of yajnas. If we forget the purpose of human life and simply take supplies from the agents of the Lord for sense gratification and become more and more entangled in material existence, which is not the purpose of creation, certainly we become thieves, and therefore we are punished by the laws of material nature. A society of thieves can never be happy because they have no aim in life. The gross materialist thieves have no ultimate goal of life. They are simply directed to sense gratification, nor do they have knowledge of how to perform yajnas. Lord Chaitanya, however, inaugurated the easiest performance of yajna, namely the Sankirtan yajna, which can be performed by anyone in the world who accepts the principles of Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, everything that is, you know, food cannot be manufactured. They all think that, you know, science is going to get us out of this climate change struggle. But can they produce rain? So the yoga of Sankirtan is necessary for California and the West Coast. You know, right now there's a deluge, but that's like a drop in the bucket compared to what they actually need all year round. You know, I think the reservoirs in California are at 50% right now. It's, you know, it's probably just going to get worse because nobody is performing yaga in this age. And therefore there'll be drought, there'll be famine, there'll be all kinds of problems because the demigods are withholding these things. So, you know, that's actually happened, I think, in New Vrindavan. They had a kirtan once and it started raining. But, you know, that's the yoga for the age, you know, and it's the one thing that can fix all the problems of our, you know, this horrible age of Kali. Maitreya, you want to read the text 13?
Yagya Śikṣāṣtaka santo muchyante sarva kilvishai bunjate te tagam papa ye pachantyatma karanat. Yagya, so this is pronounced, the Y is pronounced a little bit like a J, and the J
Yaga.
and the N with the tilde over it is like GY. So it's Jagya. It's not at all how it's written. Just like
Yeah,
the
I used to
Sringha.
pronounce it.
You
I thought it
pronounce
was
the N in the
Jaga.
Sringadev like an M, you're mispronouncing it. It's not an M, it's an NG pronounced like that. So anyway, Yagya.
Yeah.
Jagya Shishta, a food taken after performance of Jagya. Ashina, eaters. Shanta, the devotees. Muchante, get relief. Sarva, all kinds of. Kilbishai, from sins. Bunjate, enjoy. Te, they. Two, but. Agham, grievous sins. Papa, sinners. Ye, who. Bachanti, prepare food. Atmakaranat, for sense enjoyment. Translation: the devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others, who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment, verily eat only sin.
Purport. The devotees of the Supreme Lord, or the persons who are in Krishna consciousness, are called santas, and they are always in love with the Lord, as it is described in the Brahma Samhita 538. Pramanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santasadaiva radiyeshu vilokayanti. The santas, being always in a compact of love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, the giver of all pleasures, or Mukunda, the giver of liberation, or Krishna, the all-attractive person, cannot accept anything without first offering it to the Supreme Person. Therefore, such devotees always perform yagas in different modes of devotional service, such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, etc. And these performances of yagas always keep them aloof from all kinds of contamination of sinful association of the material world. Otherwise, others who prepare food for self or sense gratification are not only thieves, but also the eaters of all kinds of sins. How can a person be happy if he's both a thief and sinful? It's not possible. Therefore, in order for people to become happy in all respects, they must be taught to perform the easy process of Sankirtan Jaga in full Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, there can be no peace or happiness in the world. That just reminds me of another verse, like they'd perform all kinds of sacrifices because Krishna says, Yat karoshi yat dashnasi yat juhosi dadasi yat. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, give away, should be done as an offering unto me. And when you do that, that is, a sacrifice. Whatever you do, it doesn't matter what you do. If you push a button in the factory, then that is a sacrifice if you're doing it for Krishna, not just because you want to get paid, but you're just doing it, performing your duty in the mode of goodness, and then it turns into a transcendental offering if you're in full Krishna consciousness. So, Mike, you want to read text 14?
Sure. Nan bhavanti bhutani parjanyadana sambhava yajnad bhavati parjanyo yagya karma samudbhava. Synonyms: anat, from grains; bhavanti, grow; bhutani, the material bodies; parjanyat, from rains; ana, of food grains; sambhava, production; yajnat, from the performance of sacrifice; bhavati, becomes possible; parjanya, rain; yagya, performance of yagya; karma, prescribed duties; samudbhava, born of. Translation: all living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is performed or is born of prescribed duties.
I just wanted to mention one thing. This is a very old system. It was started at the beginning of creation, right? And so, the system of sacrifice, the men and demigods were, saying, be happy by this sacrifice, and by its performance, you will gain all, desirable things. So for millions and millions of years, people have been performing sacrifice and then getting rain, and then the rain grows the food, like the food grains. But now all of a sudden, gluten is bad. I just had to say that because, it's like a fad, I think,
It was a fad until I became gluten intolerant, and I can tell you it's not a fad. There is such a
well,
thing.
if you're gluten intolerant, there's
Let's
two
stick to
different
the
types of
text.
people.
You can get way off base by starting to speculate about things like this.
Yeah, I know. I don't argue with anybody, and I'm not arguing with you, but the fact remains that only 1.4% of people in this world have actual celiac disease. If you are gluten intolerant, which my friend David Pandit is, after he got tuberculosis, it messed his whole system up, and that, I sympathize with that. But otherwise, I just got in trouble, sometimes for making jokes about this. So I don't really talk about it anymore, and I won't talk about this anymore for fear of becoming, of being, ignorant.
What's your philosophical point?
it's not a philosophical point, but the thing is, the reason I got in trouble is because I saw a plate and it was made out of wheatgrass and it said gluten-free. And I was just laughing because they don't eat the plate. You don't eat the plate. And even if they did eat the plate, it doesn't have any gluten in it. So it's just silly. Anyway, the meeting's going to end in 10
they've
minutes. So I
taken
should
it
move
to
on.
they use that as a marketing thing now.
Yeah. You can charge more for gluten-free products. That's
The ironic
even
thing
juice,
is processed food all has wheat in it. There's wheat where you wouldn't expect it, and people get exposed to it so much that people's immune systems are starting to flip out. That's what happened to mine. So now the very people who caused it are now using it as a marketing slogan, gluten-free.
I know. Even juice. I saw. Yeah, actually, I saw this one. I saw this one advertise like a meme. It had, it says this food here is gluten-free, calorie-free, sugar-free, no additives and everything. And it just had a plate of ice. So anyway, I think we're going to just move on here. We're going off the track. But who's next? Oh, I think Maitreya, you can read the purport, right? Yeah.
Srila Baladev Vijayabhushan, a great commenter on the Bhagavad-gītā, writes as follows: Ye Indrayan, long Sanskrit, the Supreme Lord, who is known as the Yajna Purusha, or the personal beneficiary of all sacrifices, is the master of all the demigods, who serve him as the different limbs of the body serve the whole. Demigods like Indra, Chandra, Varuna are appointed officers who manage material affairs, and the Vedas direct sacrifices to satisfy these demigods so that they may be pleased to supply air, light, water sufficiently to produce food grains. And we got 8 more minutes. When Lord Krishna is worshipped, the demigods, who are different limbs of the Lord, are also automatically worshipped. Therefore, there is no separate need to worship the demigods. For this reason, the devotees of the Lord who are in Krishna consciousness offer food to Krishna and then eat, a process which nourishes the body spiritually. By such action, not only are past sinful reactions in the body vanquished, but the body becomes immunized to all contamination of material nature. When there is an epidemic disease, an antiseptic vaccine protects a person from the attack of such an epidemic.
I wondered where that was from.
Similarly, foods offered to Lord Vishnu and then taken by us makes us sufficiently resistant to material affection. And one who is accustomed to this practice is called a devotee of the Lord. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness who eats only food offered to Krishna can counteract all reactions of past material infections, which are impediments to the progress of self-realization. On the other hand, one who does not do so continues to increase the volume of sinful action, and this prepares the next body to resemble hogs and dogs, to suffer the resultant reactions of all sins. The material world is full of contaminations, and one who is immunized by accepting prasadam of the Lord, food offered to Vishnu, is saved from the attack, whereas one who does not do so becomes subjected to contamination.
Yeah, I do the same thing you do, Maitreya. When I'm reading to my wife, sometimes I just say, yeah, Indriya, a bunch of Sanskrit words. So, Mike, you want to read the last paragraph?
Sure. Can you scroll down? Food grains or vegetables are factually eatables. The human being eats different kinds of food grains, vegetables, fruits, etc. And the animals eat the refuse of the food grains and vegetables, grass, plants, etc. Human beings who are accustomed to eating meat and flesh must also depend on the production of vegetation in order to eat the animals. Therefore, ultimately, we have to depend on the production of the field and not on the production of big factories. The field production is due to sufficient rain from the sky, and such rains are controlled by demigods like Indra, sun, moon, etc., and they are all servants of the Lord. The Lord can be satisfied by sacrifices. Therefore, one who cannot perform them will find himself in scarcity. That is the law of nature. Yajna, specifically the Sankirtan yajna prescribed for this age must therefore be performed to save us at least from the scarcity of food supply.
Yeah, I was aware of that quote about the reaction from sinful or from material infections. If you have immunization, I wasn't sure exactly where that was from, though. You know, a lot of people say, well, that was taken out of context. You can't give me any kind of like scripture or, you know, like it's ridiculous. So Prabhupada, obviously, he got vaccinated so many times. Yet there's a huge, like half of my friends are not vaccinated. I can't understand. I just don't understand. We're supposed to be devotees and follow our spiritual master, yet so many people are risking their lives and risking the lives of other people by not being vaccinated. That's just my 2 cents. Text 15. Karma brahmo bhavan vidhi brahmakshara samud bhavan tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagne pratistatam. Synonyms: karma, work; Brahma, from the Vedas; Udbhavam, produced; Vidhi, you should know; Brahma, the Vedas; Ashkara, from the Supreme Brahman, personality of Godhead; Samudbhavan, directly manifest; Tasmat, therefore; Sarvagatam, all-pervading; Brahma, transcendence; Nityam, eternally; Yajna, in sacrifice; Pratistitam, situated. Translation: regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Go ahead, Maitreya. We got 3 minutes left.
I think this every time you get up early in the morning, Krishna is right there in that act of sacrifice. Yagyarta. So Jagyarta, karma, or the necessity of work for the satisfaction of Krishna only, is more expressly stated in this verse. If we have to work for the satisfaction of the Yagya Purusha Vishnu, then we must find out the direction of work in Brahman, or the transcendental Vedas. The Vedas are therefore codes of working directions. Anything performed without the direction of the Vedas is called vikarma, or unauthorized or sinful work. Therefore, one should always take direction from the Vedas to be saved from the reaction of work. As one has to work in ordinary life by the direction of the state, one similarly has to work under the direction of the supreme state of the Lord. Such directions in the Vedas are directly manifested from the breathing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said, Asya Mahato Bhutasya Nishvashita Metajak Rigvedo Yajurveda Samaveda Tanga Angirasa. The 4 Vedas, namely the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda, are all emanations from the breathing of the great personality of Godhead, from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 4.5.11. The Lord, being omnipotent, can speak by breathing air. For as it is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, the Lord has the omnipotence to perform through each of his senses the actions of all other senses. In other words, the Lord can speak through his breathing, and he can impregnate by his eyes. In fact, it is said that he glanced over the material nature and thus fathered all living entities. After creating or impregnating the conditioned souls into the womb of material nature, he gave his directions in the Vedic wisdom as to how such conditioned souls can return home back to Godhead. We should always remember that these conditioned souls in material nature are all eager for material enjoyment, but the Vedic directions are so made that one can gratify one's perverted desires, then return to Godhead, having finished his so-called enjoyment. This is a chance for the conditioned souls to attain liberation. Therefore, the conditioned souls must try to follow the process of yajna mentioned in Krishna by becoming Krishna conscious. Even those who have not followed the Vedic injunctions may adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness, and that will take the place of performance of Vedic yajnas or karmas.
Okay, I'm just going to be the devil's advocate here, and maybe you guys can answer the question or the objection. Now, like, how can I like follow all the Vedas? There's a Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda. I mean, how can I like do that? And in the course of my life, I mean, you know, how do you dovetail all your activities toward the Vedas? I mean, that sounds like an impossible task.
Well, you've been reading Lord Chaitanya. His instruction in the Chaitanya Charitamrita is Harer Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva gatiranyata. In the age of Kali, there's only one way to do it. Harer Nama.
Right. Yeah. And you're supposed to actually, you're supposed to churn the instructions of the spiritual master you've heard, which he only churns the instructions of his spiritual master. And it's all coming from the same source, which is Krishna. So even if you don't really follow the Vedic path, or you're not